Welcome back to the 2018 Crochet Along. Today we are not doing a granny square, but instead I'm going to show you one of many methods on how to put your granny squares together. This one's called the Jacob's Ladder, and this one is my favorite because it doesn't matter what, well, I mean it does matter what size your square is, but even if your square, its stitches don't match up to another square that you're going with, it's okay because you're not going to be crocheting in every single square and you're going to be working double crochets. So anyway, I'm going to use these as my demonstration squares. Some of these you might recognize in some of my videos. Some of them you may never have seen, or you have seen them, they're just in the pictures in our crochet group. These are my normal squares, the ugly yarn as I call it. Anyway, so let's get started here. I've already made some panels. My blanket that I'm making is going to be 4 squares by 6 squares long. My blankets will be donated to a local nursing home that one of my friends who is a CNA works at. So this is kind of what we have going on here. You can see how I've connected my squares. And I will put some pictures up as well. But this is kind of what we got going on here. You can see only 2 is attached, and then there's a chain in between right here where 2 more are attached. And then again another chain. And really this isn't even a chain. This is just continually double crocheting, as you can see here. Now I've got 4 attached like this. So I will show you how to go the other way where they're not attached once I show you how to do this. So grab your square. I advise you while doing this one that you try to make sure that the squares are as close together in shape as possible. I've blocked all my squares so they are the same size, but a lot of them have more stitches than the other ones do. And so that's, that's why I chose this one to do this one for this first month squares, because a lot of our squares have more stitches in them than others. So I'm choosing these 2 squares. Go ahead, start with a slip stitch on your hook. Whoops. Okay. Grab the first square that you're going to be using. I'm choosing this one, and slip stitch into the corner. Okay, and chain 2. Now grab your other square, make sure that the wrong sides are facing, so right sides are facing out, wrong sides are facing each other. Do a yarn over, insert your hook into the corner. If it is a square where we didn't do a corner in it, like this one for example, we just crocheted around inside of the corner and didn't leave a chain space, you would go ahead and insert your hook into what you think is that corner stitch from that. But in this case, we're not working with a square like that. So yarn over, insert your hook, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, causing a double crochet. And this is what we have so far. We've connected both corners. Now basically how this is going to work is you're going to do something like this, and it's going to look like legs kind of all the way down, and you'll see as we work it and when you open it up and look at it as you're working along what it looks like. So now we're going to do another double crochet, but instead of going into the next stitch, we're going to skip a stitch. So yarn over, working into our front piece. We're going to, this space doesn't count because we started in it. So here's our next stitch. So we're going to work into the space here because it does count as a stitch. So we skipped our first stitch and we're working into the space, making a double crochet. Now we're going to yarn over and move to our back piece. You can see here we have no spaces, just all stitches. So now we're going to skip the first stitch and work into the next stitch, making a double crochet. yarn over, back to your front piece. We worked in the space here, so we're going to skip this stitch, and now we're going to work into the space. If you have a stitch there, then you would work into that stitch. You're going to skip a stitch every square, or every time you work back and forth. So now we're going back to our back piece. We've already worked into this one. We're skipping this one. Now we're going to work into this one. Coming back to the front, skip a stitch, work into the next one. In my case, it would be a chain one space. Fix my yarn. Yarn over, move to the back piece, skip a stitch, work into the next one. Yarn over, come back to the front, skip a stitch, go to the back piece, skip a stitch, and you're going to repeat this until you get to the end of your row here, working front, back, front, back, front, back, remembering every side, skip a stitch from where you previously were. Okay? And I will get back to you when I get to the end so I can show you how to work onto your next set. Okay, so I'm coming up to my end here. You see I have 2 more stitches before I get to my corner on this side. And I've got some stitches back here. I have 1, 2, 3 open spots. 1, 2, 3. And I have here 1, 2. That's okay because we're going back and forth, back and forth. So I finished off in the front. Now I'm going to work to the back. I'm going to go into my stitch, come back to the front, go into my skipped stitch, and now I have both corners open. But on the front, we're going to skip the stitch to go into the corner piece here because we want these 2 squares to be connected at the same spots. But back here we don't have a stitch to skip. So that's okay because, go ahead, skip your stitch, work into the corner. When you open it like this, it looks like it was all, the squares were already made that way, even though clearly you weren't able to skip a stitch here. Let me see if I can't open this up better so you can see what it looks like. Now you do get a small ridge on top with this stitch, which is okay because all of our granny squares are very textured this month. So this actually will add a lot more detail and depth to your blanket if you are making a blanket, or even if you're making a pillow, it would be absolutely fabulous. But it will just add to the overall viewing pleasure of whatever it is you're turning it into if you choose to do this stitch. So anyway, we did our first 2 squares. Let's go ahead and work into our next 2 squares. Again, mine are going to be 4 across, 6 down, so I'm working 4 across first. Let's grab our next 2 squares. I'm sure you all remember these if you've been following along. These are my next 2. So we're going to put the wrong sides together facing each other, right sides facing us. Okay. Now we finished off in our front piece. So now we're going to start with the back piece. This just so happens to be my back corner. So I'm going to act like I'm doing a double crochet. So yarn over, insert my hook into the corner piece, and complete my double crochet. Bring my front piece over, yarn over, insert it into the corner, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. And now we've connected our squares, our 4 squares. Skip your first stitch, work into the next stitch. Come back to the front piece, skip your first, go into the next. Go to the back, skip 1, come back to the front, skip 1, go to the back, skip 1, come back to the front, and you're going to repeat this all the way down. Now if you look, you see even though my squares are the same size, here they're appearing not to be because my back square here has more stitches than my front square. But that's okay, because I'm going to show you how you fix that. So now we're working back on our back piece. Because my back piece is obviously sticking out further than my front piece, instead of skipping one, I'm going to skip 2 stitches and work into the 3rd stitch instead. And this is going to start helping it to align back up with your front piece. And if your back piece, if these were reversed and your back piece was smaller than your front piece, then you would practice this same type of technique, skipping on the larger piece 2 spaces instead of 1. But on the front, I'm going to still skip 1, just so the back piece starts to line up with our front piece. And when you're done with it, you won't even be able to tell the difference, because the stitches, the way you're working them back and forth. So holding them up, you can still see my back piece is still a little bit larger. So we're going to skip 2 stitches again and work into the 3rd stitch. Come back to the front, skip 1, work into the next. You can start to see now it's finally lining up. So now that it's starting to finally line up, we're going to go back to our back piece and we're going to skip 1 this time instead of 2. Come back to the front, skip 1. Go back to the back, skip 1. Come back to the front, skip 1. Back. Front. Coming to the back. See, we skip a 1 stitch, then we have the stitch that we're going to work into plus our corner. That's okay, because we're going to work into that corner to finish off these squares for attachment anyway. Come back to the front, and it just so happens that our corner space is the stitch we would go into anyways for skipping 1. So that's okay, that's good. Now we go back to the back and we work into that corner piece, finishing off excuse me, those 2. And as you can see, when you spread it, that's what you're getting. And it looks like it's part of the blanket. Now please forgive my choice in colors for putting the blankets together. I suppose I could have used a more friendlier color, especially considering my bright colors that I used for the tutorials versus my ugly colors here for my normal squares. So anyway, that's how you connect them. Now, once you've completed doing your panels, because you're gonna repeat this process all the way until you get however many squares across or down that you want, and then you're gonna take your next set. We're gonna pretend this is our next set here. We've already finished our first panel. Now we want to work into our second panel. You're gonna take your next set and begin all over, and you're gonna do this until you get however many squares down or across that you're doing. Now once you've done that, I'm going to cut my yarn here. Let me finish off with a quick stitch to do that. Okay. Put that off to the side. Now, like I said, I already have some panels here, and I know you can't really see them all that well on this shot or on this view, but I will take pictures so you can see them. I've got 2 panels here that are already made up. So let's start with panel 1. We're going to start all the way up here at the beginning. You can see how it's all attached simply by 1 double crochet. We're going to bend that in half, and then we're going to start in a corner. And you're going to do exactly what we just did when putting 2 together. Except for when you get to where the 4 corners meet, you're just going to pretend that that original join right here isn't even there. You're just going to work right on over it, And you're going to continue that process, attaching all of your panels together. It's very quick. I wanted to say that making my first 3 sets of panels here, I think I got 3 sets. Yeah, 1, 2, 3. 3 sets of panels. Since it's going to be 4 panels to make it 4 across, or I'm sorry, 6 down, I need 6 panels up 2. It only took me maybe 45 minutes. That's how quick this really starts working up once you get the hang of it. So chain 2, join into the back piece with a double crochet, come to the front piece, skip your stitch, join into the next one, mimicking all the same moves we did before, skip, join, until you get to your intersection of 4 squares. Now remember, if your square is starting to look slightly larger, the front or the back is starting to look slightly larger, if it's the back piece, skip 2 stitches, but keep the remaining in the front, skip 1, work in the next, until the squares line up. If it's your front piece, then you'll skip 2, work in a 3rd stitch, while still keeping in rhythm in the back, skipping 1 stitch until they line up. Okay, so I will get back to you when I get to my intersection. I'll show you how I do it. Okay, so I'm at my intersection here, as you can see. And now I'm going to, I finished off in the front, so now I'm going to go to the back, skip my stitch, come back to the front, skip my stitch, and it just so happens to be a corner. Now, do not mistaken your previous Jacob's ladder attaching here for being a corner, because it is not. Make sure you're working into your squares corner. It's actual corner. Okay? And then into the back corner. And then now you see we are actually at where our Jacob's ladder was originally, right here. So now we're just gonna mosey on over. I finished on the back square, so I'm gonna start on the front square, mosey on over to right where you see this, where we joined our Jacob's ladder before, work right into that same space. And same with this side over here. Work on into it where you joined from the previous. Skip a stitch, work into the next stitch. Look at the back, skip a stitch, work into the next. Skip a stitch, and continue the same process. So then when you go to add on your next panel here, you're going to do exactly what we did when we were joining our first panel, is you're going to work right on into it. Now I advise you to make all of your panels first before attaching your panels together, okay? But this is what it looks like in the intersection. If you can see there, that is our intersection right there. I'll hold it up for the camera. And that's what you get. It's very nice. I could have chosen a better color selection for the camera viewing, but these are what I got for my squares. So anyway, that's how you do it. That's the Jacob's ladder. If you choose to do this method, definitely we would love to absolutely see it. We've planned out, my video team and I have planned out at least, at minimum, 5 more videos. We want to try to get the putting that month's squares together. At the end of the month, one of us will be posting a video on how to connect that month's squares. Now remember, you don't have to use this method. There are many methods out there as far as putting your squares together go. So if you like our videos, if you like this video, give it the thumbs up, hit the subscribe button for more so you can be notified when we post a video. And be sure to click the link in the description below if you are not already joined with our crochet along. See all the lovely squares everybody's doing. Submit your own. We'd love to see them. So if you have questions, ask them. You know how it works, everybody. Happy hooking, y'all.